interface of gender inequality and poverty at the home with the normalization of gender inequality and poverty by the health system is actually, I believe, the killer here of people like Malama. System weaknesses that are there that need to be fixed, and many of them perhaps can be fixed, and I believe that there are a number of things that can be done and need to be done, and hopefully in the course of the day we can talk about those. But there's a fundamental issue of this interface that has to get addressed. And the system needs to ask itself the question, what does a woman look like when she interfaces with the system? And see the face of people like Malama, or the face of the 15-year-old who's coming in with swollen hands and feet, first pregnancy, a prime potential for preeclampsia and eclampsia. That's what the system needs to see. And the system needs to see how it is in fact going to address that woman's needs. Integration needs to happen at the level of the body of the woman or the young person who in fact is coming for services. Now, but for health staff, he points to the problems of numbers, inadequate numbers, the problem of inequitable distribution of staff, and the problem of staff skills. You know, what's the level of skills? Now, the government of India, interestingly, in its response to the report, which was a very recent one, of course, talked about all of the new A&M training that they're doing, etc., the SBA, the safe birth attendance training that is happening, and so on, and a lot of A&Ms are going on and doing that. But from Koppal, what we are told is that no A&Ms. The A&Ms say, we don't get to practice this. We do not get to practice anything that we're learning in this SBA training because we are seriously discouraged from conducting any deliveries ourselves. We're supposed to just funnel people up into the PHCs. Please don't conduct sub-center deliveries, is what we're told. Now, undoubtedly, somebody in the ministry thought that this was a good idea in order to reduce risky deliveries and was uncertain whether the A&M could handle this or not. But here we've got an ironic situation where the A&M, who before targets got into family planning and completely messed everything up, was someone who actually used to conduct deliveries in the sub-center, is now becoming simply a patwari, a registered pusher and a funneler of women up higher into the system. So what's the point of giving her SBA training? And what, at least in Koppal, the problem that we have is that the doctors don't have it. We have Ayush doctors sitting there who don't have a clue what they're supposed to, who've never delivered a baby, and now we've got this funneling of all kinds of people landing up in there to do it. The second one is on accountability that Paul spoke about. It's on accountability and maternal death audit. And here I would just say one thing which is more of a principle. The district commissioner is, at least in Karnataka, supposed to conduct an audit of each death that happens. That is, of course, in the middle of all the 27 other things that and committees that he is responsible for. And the few that we've seen, they basically do get the family in, or some family member, and they ask them how were you treated in the thing, and you can imagine, what kind of thing they will say, yes, no, something, etc. The real problem is that the maternal death audits are actually done by the MOs in the PHCs. Now that is a conflict of interest that is huge in a system where people are actually dying in the PHCs. The MO in the PHC cannot be the person who actually does the not just the recording of the death, but the actual investigation of why it is that she died. We did some operations research which looked at how they do it, and then how we do it, and got quite dramatically different results. Because exactly when a death happens is when the Rashomon starts. Everybody is blaming everybody else. It's very difficult to know, and unless you get the multiple stories and sift through them and cross-check and triangulate and figure out what's going on, it's not something that will ever end up telling you what it is that went wrong with this system. What you will get, therefore, is what most maternal death audits actually tell you is the woman was anemic, the woman had cardiac problems, etc. But I'm sorry, that's not good enough in Koppal, because most of them, that's what they have. I mean, they have problems of that kind. That's not the reason they die. Most of them don't die, despite that. So finally, we need to look really at how staff are trained. There are skills modules that are increasingly being developed, but there's no overall approach of what it requires to treat the needs of a woman like Malama. Doctors put into rural postings, they're not even trained for what it means to go into a rural posting. They're not sensitized for what that will mean if you go into a rural posting of this kind. What can you expect to find? What will be there? Where are the strengths? What can you do? What can you not do? Let alone being given anything on gender and gender inequality and what that means. So you've got people being, it's a piecemeal throwing bits and pieces into the system approach for training that really, I think, at this point, we are almost, I'm tempted to say that we need to call for a commission on sexual and reproductive health and rights and gender equality to really go into all of this and say, look, you can't do it like this. This will not work in this way. And then when you get to young women, the problems are so acute and so serious that I don't want to say anything more about that. The government of India's response included saying, look, MMR in India has been coming down. Okay? And the latest Lancet publication of the Chris Murray numbers actually says that India is one of the places where it has come down most significantly. Okay? Now, they need to apply, I think some mind needs to be applied even when they send in responses for something like this. Because when the SRS data that they took to say that it had come down was for 2006. But the NRHM came in 2005. And we know that government programs don't take off at all in the first year or so. So what is this decline due to? It's not due to your NRHM. It's due to something else which is going on in the country, which we know on the other side, which is of a reduction in desired fertility and in births themselves, which is having, I believe, a significant impact on the reduction in maternal deaths. But is it the system that is working in order to bring it down? I think that's really an open question. That's a question we must ask. Let me finally, this is really my last word on this, say that I'm strongly, despite everything that I've said, in favor of and a supporter of the NRHM. And given where we were before, this is certainly infinitely better than that. But if we are to move forward from where we are now 5 years on into the NRHM, we really need to start looking very, very carefully, not into inputs and outputs, but into outcomes. And in order to know what those outcomes are, government needs to, and it's our job to make sure that they actually know what is happening on the ground. Thank you very much.